Picture this. It's late. Your phone's light is the only thing cutting through your dark room as you scroll TikTok, a mindless ritual before sleep. Suddenly, a video appears. No likes, no comments, just a man. He's wearing a mask, but his eyes black as pitch, seem to swallow the light, stare directly into your soul. And then, a whisper, almost inaudible but chillingly clear. He speaks your name, your real name, the one you keep private. Now picture him not on your screen, but a tall, unsettling silhouette pressed against the moonlit glass of your window. This is Madison's story. For a fleeting moment, she thought she owned her world, reigning over 1.5 million followers, utterly untouchable. But someone was watching, someone who wanted to shatter her, and he's about to go live. Madison Hayes, 19, wasn't just on TikTok. She was TikTok. 4 weeks into her freshman year at Northwood University, nestled among manicured lawns and brick buildings, her 1.5 million followers lived and breathed her content. Her blonde hair, sharp cheekbones, and a physique honed by relentless gym sessions were her brand. Her videos were pure, unapologetic ego. Slow-motion struts in neon leggings, a sneer gracing her lips, captioned with challenges like, "You'll never shine like me." Her fans, a roaring wave of adoration, flooded her comments with "Queen" and "Slay." Madison bathed in their worship, her confidence a fragile thing, constantly recharged by the glow of her phone screen. Her single dorm room, smelling faintly of coconut body spray and the lingering tang of yesterday's workout, was her kingdom. A full-length mirror, slightly skewed against the wall, reflected a chaotic landscape of crop tops and resistance bands strewn across her bed. Madison was sprawled on her stomach, thumb flying across her phone, each flick a judgment. A girl doing shaky lunges in what looked like a garage gym popped up. "Pathetic," Madison mumbled, her lip curling. "Zero production value. No one cares." Next, a guy filming himself studying in a library. "Total incel energy," she snorted, swiping past without a second thought. They were background noise. She was the main event. Julie, her hometown shadow, lay draped across the rug, half giggling at Madison's running commentary. "Maddie, you're brutal," Julie chuckled, scrolling her own feed. Julie was the perfect sidekick, always ready with a nod or a burst of bolstering laughter, content to bask in Madison's reflected light. They'd come to Northwood together, but Madison was the star, and Julie was simply part of her orbit. Madison paused, pulling up a gym selfie she'd snapped earlier, her glutes perfectly sculpted in her new leggings. "This is going viral," she declared, her voice thick with smug satisfaction. "My fans are going to lose it." Julie grinned, a familiar adoration in her eyes. "You're unstoppable." As the likes poured in, a golden warmth spread through Madison, confirming her world was exactly as it should be. Late that night, the dorm hall was hushed. The only sound, the low, steady hum of the building's air vent. Madison lay on her bed, phone held inches from her face, the blue light painting her features. Another TikTok video loaded. No music, no filter, just a still image, and a title that made her stomach clench. Madison Hayes. Her full name, the one she'd meticulously scrubbed from every public profile, the one only a handful of people knew. A jolt of annoyance, sharp and cold, shot through her. Some creep had dug it up. She flicked her eyes to the view count, a stark, unsettling 0. The account name, JimJim, no followers, no other videos. The man in the image was a nightmare made real, 50-ish. His face a landscape of sharp angles and hollows. His skin stretched taut over bone. Greasy black hair clung to his scalp in matted clumps. An N95 mask, its white fabric discolored with grime and faint, dark stains, swallowed the lower half of his face. But his eyes, those same eyes, black as pitch, seemed to swallow the light, bored into her. He was frozen, unblinking, like a mannequin come to life, his gaze chilling her to the bone. Madison's breath hitched, a prickle of goosebumps rising on her arms. "What a loser," she muttered, her bravado kicking in, a flimsy shield against the sudden chill. She thumbed the block button, whispering, "Death to pervs!" and scrolled on. But those eyes, that name, they clung to her, a persistent, icy dread she couldn't shake. To push it away, she posted a quick story, a posed shot captioned "Too hot for creeps," watching the likes trickle in. A small, desperate attempt to steady her nerves. The next day, Madison felt a raw, exposed nerve beneath her usual confidence, but she plastered on her practiced influencer smile. She met Julie in the bustling campus cafeteria, her phone still a constant extension of her hand. "So, this creepy simp on TikTok," she began, tossing her blonde hair, trying to sound casual. "Some stalker named JimJim dug up my last name, made this super weird video. Seriously, straight up psycho." Julie, sipping her iced latte, barely looked up from her own phone. "Maddie, stalkers come with the fame, right? Like as if you're not used to creeps by now. You're way too big for some nobody to get to you." Her tone was light, almost dismissive, and it pricked Madison. It felt less like reassurance and more like a subtle jab, a reminder of how big Madison was and how small this problem should be. Madison forced a brittle smile. Yeah, total loser. But inside, the unease gnawed. It wasn't just annoyance anymore. It was a cold, creeping dread. She tried to film a quick campus video, but her usual swagger felt off, her movements stiff. She needed that rush of likes, that validation, to feel like herself again. Later that night, before she even thought about scrolling TikTok, she found herself checking the lock on her dorm door. Twice. Something she'd never done before. The next night, Madison felt a persistent hum of dread under her skin. Curled on her bed, she scrolled TikTok, fingers moving on instinct, desperate for the familiar numb comfort the app usually brought. Then, a live stream popped up. JimJim. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She'd blocked him. How was he back? Her eyes darted to the viewer count. A single chilling 1. Just her. The video showed him. Same N95 mask, its grimy fabric and frayed straps stark against his face. Same greasy, matted clumps of black hair. Those same eyes, black as pitch, seemed to swallow the light, cold and empty. But now with a chilling glint of malice she hadn't seen before. They weren't just voids. They promised harm, a sharp, cold threat that clawed at her gut. Her skin crawled, a tightness seizing her chest. She stared at his still, unblinking figure, his gaze cutting through the screen as if he could see her, feel her rising panic. Then, a detail in the background snagged her breath. Concrete. A bent lamppost casting a sickly yellow glow. A brick wall scarred with old graffiti. It was too familiar. Her breath hitched, dread building slow and heavy in her stomach. That was the courtyard right outside her dorm. A cold, heavy pang of terror hit. He was here, right now, outside her window. Her hands shook so hard her phone rattled against the bed. She crept towards the window, every nerve screaming, dread pooling thick and cold in her stomach. She gripped the edge of the curtain, knuckles white, heart hammering like a trapped bird. With a desperate yank, she ripped it back. Her worst fear was real. There he stood in the courtyard below, tall and lanky, perfectly still, staring directly up at her window. The greasy clumps of his hair caught the faint streetlight, his soiled mask a pale smudge in the darkness, and those black eyes burned with an unwavering, terrifying intent. Panic choked her. She dropped her phone, the live stream still playing, and bolted across the hall to Julie's room. She pounded on the door, a desperate, raw sound. "Julie, open up!" "It's that creep, JimJim, the one with the weird eyes. He's here, he's watching me." Julie, groggy and half asleep, finally let her in. "Maddie, what in the world is going on?" "He's in the courtyard. I saw him." Madison grabbed Julie's arm, dragging her back into her own room, pointing a trembling finger at the abandoned phone. But the screen now read, "Live ended." The account. Deleted account. Julie peered out the window. The courtyard was empty, swallowed by shadows and silence. "Are you okay?" Julie asked, a frown creasing her brow, her voice laced with concern, but also a hint of disbelief. "Maybe you're just stressed. Fame's a lot, you know." Madison's rage exploded, fueled by fear and the sting of betrayal. "You think I'm lying? He was right there. He was staring right at me." She shoved Julie gently but firmly out of her room and slammed the door shut, the sound echoing in the sudden silence. She collapsed onto her bed, chest heaving, heart still thrashing against her ribs. Those eyes had been real. He had been real. The next day, Madison was a wreck. Her polished facade had splintered, leaving her confidence shattered like fragile glass. The gym, usually her sanctuary and content factory, felt too exposed, too open. She couldn't bring herself to leave her room, the familiar walls now pressing in, suddenly too thin. She tried to film a quick update video, but her smile felt like a grotesque mask, her usual swagger replaced by a stiff, forced pose. Her obsession with TikTok morphed from pleasure to pure dread. She scrolled compulsively, each notification a sharp jab, making her flinch. Julie texted again, a simple "You okay?" on her screen, but Madison ignored it. She didn't need pity from her sidekick. She needed the rush of likes, the validation, to feel like the Madison she was supposed to be. But the fear was a cancerous growth, eating her alive from the inside. She told herself she was overreacting, that it was just some pathetic troll. But the simple lock on her dorm door felt flimsy, utterly useless. She needed a viral post, something enormous to reclaim her throne, to prove to herself she was still in control. But the fear, cold and relentless, was consuming her. She found herself staring at the door, listening to the hum of the air vent, imagining shadows shifting outside, convinced he was still watching. The next night, Madison dragged herself back from the gym, exhausted, but a surge of smug satisfaction still in her veins. Her ass had looked incredible in her new leggings, and the content she'd filmed was pure fire, definitely going viral. For a few precious hours, it had kept her mind off JimJim, a welcome reprieve. She dropped her gym bag by the bathroom door, skipping her shower. She needed to edit and post tonight. That rush of likes and comments was the only thing keeping the creeping dread at bay, the only thing making her feel sane. Her dorm room was a familiar chaos. Empty protein bar wrappers, discarded resistance bands, the full-length mirror reflecting her cluttered desk. She flipped open her laptop, the screen flickering to life, its glow a comforting pulse in the dim room. Her TikTok feed loaded, and there it was, a new JimJim reel. Terror seized her instantly, a cold, crushing vice around her chest. The footage showed a messy room, a bed piled with clothes, textbooks scattered on a desk. Just some random dorm, she thought at first. A flicker of irritation that this creep was posting such mundane content. But then her gaze sharpened, snagging on a specific detail. A bright pink resistance band, identical to the one tangled in her own hair. Her breath hitched. She scanned the screen again, a horrifying realization dawning. The unmade bed, the crop top draped over the pillow, the uneven stack of textbooks. Every detail matched. This wasn't a messy room. This was her room. Her hands trembled as she leaned closer, a frantic denial screaming in her mind. Then, her eyes snapped to the small digital clock in the background of the video, glowing red. 10:55 p.m. Her own clock on the bedside table read 11 p.m., 5 minutes ago. This wasn't old footage. This was now. The unseen filmer, a dark shape, retreated towards the bathroom door. The light inside the bathroom clicked off with a soft, chilling finality. Darkness. The reel ended abruptly. She was frozen, her body numb, her mind screaming. He was in the bathroom. Right now. The air in the room felt thick, heavy, the shadows suddenly too deep, too alive. Her pulse thundered in her ears, drowning out everything else. What did she do? Run? Scream? Her legs felt like concrete, glued to the floor. The bathroom door, standing half open, a black, silent void, was now a terrifying barrier between her and the exit. She wanted to scream, but the sound would only alert him, bring him on her in seconds. Her phone slipped from her hand, clattering loudly on the desk, the sound echoing in the terrifying silence. She was alone, utterly exposed, and he was here. Madison forced her legs to move, a desperate lunge towards the door. But as she turned, a shadow detached itself from the black void of the bathroom. JimJim stepped out, silent as a ghost, already positioned to block her path. He was tall, lanky, his frame looming in the dim light like a twisted, skeletal silhouette. His greasy black hair clung to his gaunt face, catching the faintest glint of the desk lamp. The N95 mask, soiled and stretched, made his eyes stand out. Black as pitch, empty, devoid of any spark, any humanity. They seemed to suck the warmth from the room, cold and unfeeling. His smell hit her then. A rancid combination of sweat and something sharp, metallic like old blood. His energy was unnervingly calm, a predator savoring its moment, a manic stillness that vibrated with a terrifying, contained power. Madison tried to scream, her chest heaving but her voice choked, a pathetic whimper caught in her throat. Before she could find it, JimJim was on her, impossibly fast, like a snake striking. His grip, surprisingly strong, clamped over her mouth, cutting off the sound. Then, a strip of coarse duct tape was slapped over her lips, sealing her silent. He didn't bind her arms or legs. He simply pushed her down onto the chair in front of her laptop. Madison's mind screamed in silent horror, but her body was trapped. JimJim moved with unsettling efficiency. He angled the laptop screen to perfectly frame Madison's terrified face, eyes wide with horror, the duct tape a stark line across her mouth. His bony fingers moved across the keyboard, typing out a title in the cringy, clickbait style Madison herself was infamous for. Madison's ultimate challenge, life or lies, shocking. He hit Go Live. The screen instantly lit up, a cruel spotlight broadcasting her raw fear. The viewer count began to climb, a few thousand rushing in. Comments flooded in, a torrent of digital noise. They were mostly supportive, her loyal fans rallying, "You got this, Queen! Slay, Maddie!" Madison clung to their words, a desperate anchor in the storm of her pounding heart. The viewer count topped 25,000, as she hit the first minute of the live stream. JimJim, however, seemed a bit put out, a flicker of annoyance in his eyes as he glanced at the screen, reading the initial positive comments. He muttered, "Morons," under his breath. He faced the camera, his raspy, high-pitched voice like dry leaves scraping on gravel. Tonight, Madison Hayes faces judgment. Is she as fit and strong as she claims? Let's find out. I think we can all agree we've had enough of fake influencers lying to our faces. Let's see if this one's as real as she claims. His mission was clear, spoken with a chilling, almost righteous conviction. Unmask frauds, expose the liars. It was why he lived, why he hunted. Challenge 1, the acid drop. She claims to be flawless, untouchable, a perfect image, JimJim sneered, his voice a low growl, thick with disgust. Let's see if that pretty face can take a real hit. Madison, get into that crow pose. You know, hands on the floor, knees on your arms, feet off the ground. That yoga crap. Hold it for 3 minutes. He produced a thin, almost invisible fishing line, attaching one end to the ceiling light fixture and the other to a small, clear balloon. He filled the balloon from a dark, unmarked bottle, a faint, acrid vapor rising from it. This balloon, filled with sulfuric acid, hangs right over your head. You move, you wobble, you drop. That line snaps. Acid burns your face off. No more filters, no more perfect selfies, just a melted mess. Your choice, phony. Hold still, or lose that perfect face. Madison's stomach churned, a wave of nausea rising at the thought of the acid, the slow, agonizing burn that would melt away her brand, her identity, everything she was. Her breath hitched, fear spiking her heart rate as she imagined the searing pain, the grotesque ruin. She forced herself into the crow pose, arms burning like fire, her core screaming for stillness, her neck aching. Her body quivered with the effort, but she held on, driven by the initial surge of her fans' support. The viewer count continued to climb, now well into the hundreds of thousands. JimJim paced, his eyes fixed on the comments scrolling past, reading them aloud with a taunting clarity, his frustration at the positive feedback morphing into contempt. "You got this, Queen. Show him, Maddie. Keep going." They added a heart emoji. "She's shaking, might be fake." And look, someone even added a little garbage can emoji. Ha ha ha, I like that one. "You're the best, Maddie." He leaned close, his rancid metallic stench choking her. "Your fans believe in you, Madison. For now." She gritted her teeth, sweat dripping down her temples, her body trembling but holding. The timer chimed. She stumbled forward, gasping for air, relief flooding her as the balloon remained suspended, swaying gently. JimJim sneered. "Close call. I'll give her a C-. Let's see if she can do better." The viewer count was now over 100,000, and Madison noticed a subtle shift in the chat. More critical comments were starting to mix in. Challenge 2. 200 squats. "All right, she just barely snuck by," JimJim said, a cruel grin stretching his mask, his voice gaining a new edge of confidence as he glanced at the rapidly climbing viewer count. Moving to Challenge 2. Let's see if those legs she's always showing off are as useful as she claims. 200 squats in 5 minutes, elite level. Surely, if anyone can do it, it's Madison. He strapped a jerry-rigged device to her neck. It looked like a weed whacker motor, but instead of string, it had several layers of circular barbed wire that began to spin with a low, menacing whir as the motor revved. "This is the face eater. It's time to reach her face at 5 minutes unless she hits 200. It'll shred her face like sushi." You think she'll still have 1 million+ followers with a face like that? Let's find out. Madison's legs still felt like jelly from the previous challenge, but she started strong, her gym-honed body pushing through the initial pain. The first 50 squats were smooth, her confidence buoyed by the remaining cheers from her loyal fans. By 75, her thighs burned, a deep, searing pain slowing her. At 100, panic surged. How could she possibly do 200? The Face Eater's low hum grew louder, the barbed wire inching closer with every passing second. Her legs shook violently, each squat a desperate, agonizing battle. Midway through, the comments shifted dramatically. JimJim's followers, a new wave of vitriol, were rushing in, overwhelming the chat. His eyes gleamed with manic joy as he read, his voice laced with taunting glee, almost singing, "Keep going, Maddie. She's slowing down, legs are weak. Prove him wrong. They put a fire emoji. Face Eater's coming. She's fake. Fraud. She's done. Weak. JimJim for president." Madison's heart sank, the betrayal hitting her hard. Her biggest supporters, the ones she lived for, were being drowned out, replaced by a tide of hate. Her focus wavered, her thighs screaming, sweat blinding her. She hit 150, gasping, the wire's hum deafening, a cold metal brush against her ear. At 199, the timer was nearly out. She screamed through the tape, a raw, muffled sound, forcing one last agonizing squat as the wire grazed her nose, drawing a thin line of blood. She collapsed, utterly spent, legs useless, her body a wreck. The viewer count was now well over 300,000, and JimJim's grin was wider than ever. Dread pooled in her gut. One more challenge awaited. JimJim laughed, a low, rough sound that vibrated through the room, his commitment to his twisted game surging with the massive audience. "Not bad, but you're breaking, Madison." He leaned into the camera, reading more comments, his voice soaring with manic triumph. "She's weak. Total fraud. Face Eater should have got her. We love you, JimJim." Challenge 3. Plank of Pain. JimJim circled her, his voice gleeful, a chilling excitement in his tone, his eyes alight with the power of his massive audience. Final challenge, a 5-minute plank over my masterpiece. He gestured to a plywood board studded with used syringes, their sharp, rusty tips glinting like deadly quills in the dim light. "I made this for you, Madison. Inject some real effort, or you're done. Fall, and those needles will pierce you. You'll bleed out, right here, live for everyone to see." He positioned her over the board, needles inches below her trembling body. Madison's body was a ruin, arms shot from the previous challenges, legs dead from squats. She forced herself into the plank, but her muscles screamed instantly, trembling violently under the strain. Her arms felt like jelly, her core a knot of agony, each breath a struggle. Her mind was a storm, exhaustion, raw fear, and the crushing weight of betrayal. The support from her fans, the only thing keeping her going, was gone, replaced by a wave of vitriol. Her head spun, dizziness flooding in, her vision blurring at the edges. She was on the verge of passing out, her body begging to quit, her spirit utterly broken by the very fans who'd once worshipped her. The viewer count was now nearing 500,000, and JimJim was practically vibrating with glee as he read comments, his voice cutting like a knife. "We love you, JimJim. JimJim for president. She's done." They put a trash can emoji. "Die, fraud. No filters now. She's nothing. JimJim rules." The words from fans she had trusted, the ones who had built her up, now shattered her. Their betrayal sapped her last ounce of will, her arms buckling, her mind fading into a hazy, agonizing blur. She couldn't hold on, her body screaming in protest, her heart broken. At 3:27, just as JimJim started to tense, a flicker of worry in his eyes that she might actually make it, her body finally gave out. She collapsed with a sickening thump onto the syringes, a sharp, searing pain exploding through her. Blood bloomed beneath her, spreading fast, staining the plywood. JimJim's eyes had been darting to the timer, his body stiff with worry as Madison held on past 3 minutes. At the sickening thump, a wave of relief washed over him, his shoulders relaxing, a wide, triumphant smile curling beneath his mask, his eyes glinting with pure, unadulterated joy. He threw himself onto Madison's bed in glee, sprawling across her crop tops, laughing wildly, a high, cackling sound. He sprang up, mocking, "Oh, happy day!" Another fake influencer down the drain. We're cutting out the rot, one influencer at a time. He leaned into the camera, reading the final comments, his voice soaring with manic triumph. "You showed her, JimJim! Best video ever! Knew she was fake! Worth every super chat! Dead influencer! Best influencer!" JimJim turned back to the camera, but the distant wail of sirens was growing louder, closer. His voice became rushed, urgent. But she's not the only one. So many fakes out there, showing a total lie of who you are. My work's just begun, and I need your help. Tag number JimJim on the biggest frauds you know, and maybe I'll pay them a visit. Gotta go. He moved off camera. The audience heard a frantic rummaging, things clattering, then the dorm door creaked open and slammed shut. The live stream continued, a chilling, still image of Madison's body slumped over the syringe board, blood pooling beneath her. Police burst in, their heavy boots thudding on the floor. One officer retched at the sight of the syringe board, vomiting violently in the corner. Another, horrified, rushed to the laptop and slammed it shut, ending the live stream. JimJim was gone. No trace. No one saw him leave. The story spread like wildfire, a digital plague. JimJim, a shadow no one could find, was trending across Instagram and X, millions tagged influencers with number JimJim, a chilling anonymous call to unmask frauds. Police searched the campus, the entire town. Nothing. Influencers everywhere were warned. Watch for anything strange, anything threatening. JimJim wasn't done. Another challenge was coming. Somewhere, another star would face his camera,